my name is Kate, and I'm a volunteer with Washington County Democrats. And we have a special election coming up on May 20th, and we're talking to different candidates that we've endorsed to learn more about them and their platform. And today I'm speaking with Alfredo Moreno. Alfredo, what position are you running for this election?
Yeah, so I am running to retain my seat on the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District Board of Directors.
Awesome. What inspired you to initially run for office, since you're running for re-election, so this will be your second term? So what inspired you initially, and then what drew you to the board when running?
Yeah, you know what really inspired me initially was the local elected folks here in the Beaverton area, and in Washington County. I think the more I sort of got to see who was who, and I was really kind of inspired by the different kinds of faces I was seeing, the different ages, and I would say non-traditional in both camps. And I started to say, hey, there's some folks who kind of are like me, and people who I grew up maybe not necessarily seeing a lot of in Oregon. Now I grew up in Southern Oregon, but that was the initial. Hey, maybe I can do this also. I come from a political family in West Texas, so I'm certainly no stranger to kind of political activism and things like that. But it was never anything on my radar. And then, of course, for THPRD specifically, I was a dad at the time of oh gosh, a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old. So um, I was an active user. Our family were active users. We lived right by the Conestoga Rec and Aquatic Center and saw that every day and saw the people who were going into it frequently. And then also it started getting me to think about who maybe wasn't going there all the time, who lived in the neighborhood. So these are all kind of things that were, bouncing in my head as I decided, okay, let's go for it while we're still in this weird pandemic, back in 2021.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting time to have joined. And for that to be your first term. So this is your second term. So how would you say you've grown in the role so far, and how do you hope to apply what you've learned moving forward?
Yeah, honestly, my first year, I think I was really just trying to be a good, I love to use all kinds of metaphors, but I just almost like a dragon boat. I just wanted to hold on to the oar and row and try not to lose my oar in the water or fall overboard and just keep the team, just be a productive person. Um, I knew enough that I wasn't going to swing in on a chandelier and try to save the day or radically change things was not my agenda. I was and very fortunate the THPRD board was in a very good place. I was well aligned with the work. But I think definitely my first couple of years, I would say I think I overthought things a little bit and I didn't want to, should I say this? Oh, what should I say? What shouldn't I say? Um, I think in the last couple of years, I just started to trust myself that I belonged, and then to be myself, to trust what I had to say and how I came about the work, and that it didn't have to be the exact same as some of the people who I looked up to and who were I would consider mentors and folks who I followed. I could take little pieces here and there, sure, but ultimately every person has to be their own self. And I think at the local level, that's I think there's room to be a little less of a polished product that you are uh, trying to present to people. I think authenticity still counts for a heck of a lot. So I think that was a big one that I am taking with me, and I will continue to evolve in a second term. But um, you know, specifically, I am somebody who's going to approach it in a very um, sometimes unrehearsed way, and I trust myself to say things, but I also want to. I don't want to lose sense that I'm just kind of a frazzled dad from the neighborhood who's doing his best to do this, and that's the perspective I'm bringing. I'm thoughtful and I'm diligent, but I'm not. It's not my full-time job. We this is I am a segment of the community that I'm kind of bringing that perspective to the work, and I think trusting that and trusting my own kind of just being myself. And who is Alfredo? He doesn't have to be the same as everyone else. He can be himself and still be effective. And I've seen, hey, that worked. Wow, okay, I could just and you start to get confidence as you understand that what you're bringing to the table has impact and people are responding well to it.
That's really cool. So I think a lot of people have this vision of like what they think somebody in politics is when really like being your most authentic self like helps you serve better. So that's
Yeah,
really
it's a
cool.
lighter lift. You don't have to take the mask off at the end of the day, and you feel more energized because of it.
That's awesome. I like that. Okay, I'm going to pivot to your priorities that you've listed. One of them that you listed was collaboration across local government. So, I'd love to hear more about what that means for you and like what sorts of things that we can achieve with that collaboration.
Yeah, that's a big one for me. I think I am a very much a relational leader. I will, um, I have some expertise in things like public relations and strategic partnerships that I do for work, but I am not an expert in land use. I'm not an expert in budget, an expert in, all these things that are part of what we do. I am um, analytical and an evaluator, and I do the best I can as a elected community member, as one of five people whose eyes and ears and opinions are on issues. But what I really have a passion for doing is connecting with people. And so I think in the greater Beaverton area, I always use the metaphor of like a solar system. We have these individual planets in the city, in parks, in kind of the county, in fire and rescue and water. They all have their own elected boards and they don't answer to each other directly, but we are all kind of in orbit of each other. And we can't pretend that what we do doesn't impact anybody else. So, school district, of course, also in there. So, um, I think what I've tried to bring, and what I will continue to bring, is a desire to get to know my fellow elected officials. I think we've done a really nice job of growing that with the city of Beaverton in our current board, and I would say myself to a certain extent. Um, I think we have room to grow with the school district. I think we have room to grow, um, with some other folks, but Metro is another one. So I think the more we communicate to each other. So when THPRD has an idea for something or could use some help with something, we're not just cold calling somebody on the school board to ask them for a favor. That's that very transactional um, sort of thing that everyone understands. The limitations of just showing up and asking for a favor or asking for someone to pitch in when they've never heard of you before, or they don't know what your priorities are. So I think the more we can set aside time, and its natural inclination is to be siloed because everyone is so focused on their thing, and that's totally understandable. But I think the more us in our area in Greater Beaverton can sort of cross pollinate, can be at least I would say collaborative does not mean uniformity. We don't have to be in lockstep where we all think the same. We all agree on the exact same candidates or exact same way of getting there. We're all in this for greater community uplift. And I think with that kind of core value shared, we can do some really good work as we like build relationships. And you want to help a friend. The mayor always is her famous quote is always make a friend before you need a friend. I mean, it's along those lines of that you've got to have these relationships in place before you have to go and get people to line up behind you, or before you need to pick somebody's brain, or so the more we can do that, the more I hope that for your average person who's not who doesn't know whether they're, whose jurisdiction is whose. Does this park belong to the city or is it THPRD's? I don't care. I just want it to work right. So the more we can kind of create a seamless experience for people where they don't feel that, um, oh no, I have to go to the THPRD board for that. Oh no, I have to go to here for that. Oh no, they're going to send me, um, that's not my job kind of things. I want for your average Beaverton community member to feel like all the systems are more or less working together to make it as positive an experience as possible for them.
That because you can definitely feel that siloed effect if that's not there. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
because we've got a lot of agencies out here, right? It's a kind of complicated, world.
Yeah. Well, and THPRD does a lot. And I think that it's, I'm like fairly new to the area. I've been here for about 3 years, and it's been really impressive to see like what just THPRD can do. And it's like, I love that. Like, what if everybody did it all together, And like, what if we were,
Exactly. And I'll give full credit to, prior board members who led THPRD into the conversations about affordable housing and how can we as the Parks District leverage what we have. In our case, it's our SDC funds. Can we waive those for affordable housing developments and things like that, where we hadn't traditionally been, okay, does this have anything to do with parks or a recreation facility? No. Okay, we're not, that's, that's not our jurisdiction. I think increasingly over the last 5, 6 years, the Parks District has looked into, okay, it's not our immediate wheelhouse, but can we make an impact somewhere? Yes. Okay. Well, let's try, because we're part of this greater greater good of the community. So I think we're still in that world, and the current board is still very much of that mindset.
that's really cool. That makes me happy to hear. All right. Now we're going to go to one of my favorite priorities, which is equity and inclusion, which you listed that one of your priorities was creating welcoming spaces. And I think that's especially important with the types of spaces that THPRD, kind of that jurisdiction, but also that's hard with a community as large as ours. So I'd love to hear more about how do you and the board approach the creation of those spaces, and why does it matter?
Yeah. Yeah, that's easily one of the most satisfying aspects of seeing some of these come to fruition. I think, how do we approach it? We list it clearly in our values from the get-go, that we believe in welcoming spaces and belonging, especially for folks who they haven't always seen themselves reflected back in the park spaces, whether it's naming or just kind of um, locations or the rec centers and staffing. I think the district, I take my hat off. I couldn't be more proud of like where they are in terms of their effort to create welcoming spaces. I think you see it when you walk into our buildings. You see folks who reflect the community at large. Um, I think we've worked really hard on park naming, and leaning into you know co-produced cultural events with our community members that have created access to the district for a wider range of people. And I've been just super proud. That's like the heartful stuff, is when you see some of the festivals that we help to put on. You see people accessing programs through our equity program, Centro de Bienvenida, where people can, English language learners, um, immigrant community members, folks who need a little extra time to sign up for our very competitive registration process, can go in person and sit down with someone a week beforehand, and go through the courses and get signed up how they need to, and have access to financial aid. So it's about kind of lowering barriers to our spaces where everyone, right? I mean, Parks Rec are like mental health, physical health things that are, we believe, a lot of most people in our community believe they're um, kind of essential human right sort of thing. So it's like everything that we can do to make it a no-brainer and not nervous experience to access your local public parks and rec spaces and programs is everything. So my favorite of our new parks is La Raíz. It's in the Vos neighborhood. It opened last summer. It was in development, and the name um, was in process right as I was coming on the board. But it's a heavily kind of mixed income, and there's a lot of Spanish speakers. There's a lot of people, um, uh, in lower income housing, walking. Here's a walkable, top of the line park in the neighborhood that speaks to a cultural relevance of a lot of the people who live in this area. And we had a huge grand opening for it with all the good stuff. And I've continued to see people come to the park and play dominoes and take their kids and use all the facilities. And that for me is like, hey, this is a place where people really feel comfortable. And I think for us, the next level of that, what I would really like to see is just a little more of that placemaking in the parks, a little more. What kind of art can we bring in? What kind of um, signage and storytelling can we bring to spaces? So that's something I'll be creatively working with staff and my fellow board members to kind of pull the thread on in a second term.
That's cool. I'm excited to see what that looks like in the second
Yeah.
term. Well, is there anything else that you would like voters to know that we haven't already covered in this conversation?
Yeah, I just think one of uh, our biggest benefit and for me, joy from being a local elected official, especially a kind of a hyper local elected, like a Parks and Rec board member, is kind of, um, we all process, you know, how should I say it? We all sort of process things through like a global lens and a national lens of how issues are impacting us and our community members. We also have the advantage of being very zoomed in to where everyone in this community is our neighbor, and we're serving everyone here, regardless of their ideology and their way of going about the world. And I think um, I see my job as a local elected official to be really kind of have uh, just wide access, have kind of broad engagement with people, whether um, I agree with their thoughts about how THPRD is operating or not, or I agree with their thoughts on other things. I think it's just for me, it's been a pleasure to connect with people and be um, just a person that anyone can come to and share their thoughts. When we have, sometimes we've had a, a contentious public forum where folks are upset at something the district is proposing. Well, I mean, as a director, I mean, I really enjoy those as opportunities to come and hear thoughts and allow myself to think about, um, okay, what are their feel? Let me walk in their shoes a little bit, and um, let me kind of scrub those against where the district leadership is, what their thoughts are and what they're uh, identifying and seeing. So I think that local access and representation is such a um, fun, important thing that we get to do here, where we just really focus on this whole place being one big community. There's not an us and them. It's just all of us here in Greater Beaverton, and we're all working to make it as good of a place as we can.
That's excellent. It's a great note to end on. Thank you so much, Alfred.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
It didn't come out as fluidly as I thought it was going in my
no,
head, but I
no,
got there.
That's excellent though, but like cheers to yeah, like not us versus them, like just us, right? Like we're all working on it together. So
It's hard, right? It's hard, and with because things are challenging, and things are a lot of stuff is being disrupted and shaken apart, and it can be easy to uh, I don't know. And obviously, there's an urgency at those levels, but here, we do kind of have the luxury of not having to necessarily wage those battles. We are figuring out hard things here, and we have plenty of people who don't agree with certain operational things. And I don't know if it's, but I, I think when we kind of just open the circle and that we're all in it, and I try to do that. I mean, honestly, it's just as more of an aside. I mean, as an elected, I'm just, hey, I'm not any smarter necessarily than the person who's sending me a 8 paragraph email about something they're passionate about that's wrong with the district. I'm just um, the more information I can get, the more I can think about it and analyze it, and the more I have in my pocket to make an informed decision. But we're all just community members doing our best to make this a great place to live, work, and play. So um, anyway, my 2 cents.
well, I really appreciate them. And I think, yeah, it's a good reminder to everybody. May 20th, get out and vote. We've got a special election, lots of really lovely candidates to vote for, like you. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really
Well,
appreciate it.
a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely.